Hello everybody, in this video we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations when we have complex solutions. So we have three examples on the screen here. Let's go ahead and get going with number one. So we see we have x squared plus 121 equals 0. So we want to isolate our variable. So let's subtract 121 from both sides. So we get x squared is equal to negative 121. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. And right, so immediately we see we're trying to take the square root of a negative. So we know there's going to be an imaginary solution or imaginary number a part of our solution. So now we could write this as x is equal to positive or negative square root of negative 121. And so now let's break this apart. We know that we have plus or minus, and then the square root of 121 times the square root of negative 1, right? So the square root of 121 is a perfect square, that'd be 11. And then the square root of negative 1 we represent as the unit I. So we could write this as x is equal to positive or negative 11i. Okay, so that'd be, we have two solutions, positive 11i and negative 11i, right? So if we want to think about our original expression here, x squared plus 121, you know, we've talked about factoring that before, and if that was minus x squared minus 121, that'd be the difference of two squares, and we could write that as x plus 11 times x minus 11. Well, in this case, we could write it as x plus 11i times x minus 11i, right? Because it's x squared plus 121, so technically it's not factorable with real numbers, and so if we add that imaginary I in there, we're able to factor it. All right, so for number 2, we have 3x squared plus 25 equals negative 416. So let's go ahead and move 25 to the other side by subtracting. So now we have 3x squared equals negative 441. And now let's divide both sides by 3. So we get x squared equals negative 149. Okay, that'd be negative 147. Okay, now we can go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So we get x squared equals positive or negative, and we have negative 147 square root. So let's think about the factors of 147, and 49 would be a perfect square factor. So we could write this as x is equal to positive or negative, and let's write this as a square root of 49, and that's 49 times 3, and then we can add in our negative 1. So now we know this is x equals positive or negative, square root of 49 is 7, square root of negative 1 is our I, our unit I, and then we can write our root 3 next to it. Okay, so our two solutions would be 7i root 3 and negative 7i root 3. And our last example, number 3, we're going to start off by subtracting 33 from both sides. And that's going to give us 5x squared is equal to negative 30. Now we can divide both sides by 5. So we get x squared is equal to negative 6. Take the square root of both sides, and we get x is equal to positive or negative square root of negative 6. And in this case, we could write this as positive or negative square root of 6 times the square root of negative 1. And that square root of negative 1 is going to give us our unit I. Okay, so now we have x is equal to positive or negative I root 6. Okay, and so that's how we can solve some quadratic equations with complex solutions.